Hello. It's a hump day here in Queensland, Australia. It's really humid and hot. We've just had a lot of rain. It's been flooding around Queensland, if you have seen the news, and it's now very humid when the sun comes out. So I'm just really grateful because I recently found out that I'm really just not good in extreme temperatures. This lovely avatar I've been given really can't handle extreme cold or extreme hot. And so I have a fan on and I have cold drinks thanks to ice in the refrigerator. And I'm just really feeling very grateful that I live in a tropical part of the world and not a freezing cold part of the world, which is interesting because my dad's a Canadian. So I have been to Canada plenty of times and I can see the contrast and I'm just really grateful. So I just wanted to share that bit of gratitude first. Maybe someone will relate to that. Now, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey coming into higher levels of consciousness. It's occurred to me a lot lately how different it feels when you really start to see how far you've come from where you used to be, like a measuring stick. I look back at things regularly, as we do, having memories in this avatar, and revisiting how I used to experience and suffer through things, which I don't anymore. And one of those things that really dawned on me recently was how much I used to be very much entangled in the world of sensual delights, sensory pleasures, the five senses. In fact, I think this is extremely common, especially in Western societies where we are taught to live a very material life and to get our delights and pleasures from external forces. And so I was no exception. In fact, I was probably a little bit more extreme. I was imbalanced, and a lot of people kind of can moderate through this part of life. But for me, as for many others, I had this desire to seek comfort, and I used that through external forces. So it started off in food, and it went into alcohol, and then into party drugs, into pharmaceutical medications, and into promiscuity as well. I will admit that. And I was very, very miserable. And I was always seeking the next sensual pleasure. And it's like having a carrot dangled on a stick in front of you. You don't actually ever reach that carrot. And I've heard that is a similar thing for people who have been addicted to heroin. Not that I've touched that, thankfully, but I believe that you're always chasing that first high, that first memory, which you never can ever get again. And so you become insatiable. And there's nothing worse than a feeling of extreme thirst that you can't satiate, that you can't hydrate in feeling relief. There's no relief. And so this is the case for people who are seeking to live a hedonist existence. It is extremely unfulfilling and it leads to so much suffering. I can attest to that. And I believe it's a fast track way, if you reach that rock bottom, which I did, to seek something more in this life. And so I do see a benefit in being someone who is full on in things, because they end up coming to a crashing halt at some point, either through disease in the body or through some horrible circumstances that are created, some extreme bursting point where something explodes and something causes extreme pain in your life, which is basically the definition of hitting rock bottom. So for me, I was no exception. I ended up in a point in my life where I felt extremely miserable and empty inside. And it didn't matter how much I drank alcohol or tried to socialize in the old ways, I still felt empty inside and unfulfilled. And I knew there was something more. There was this kind of little growing hunger pain inside me that increased over time to the point where I knew there was something out there that would satiate me. And so this is kind of where I am in the journey. I got to this beautiful insight, this ability to perceive this higher something that I was looking for. And they often talk about a higher power, and this is what they talk about in the STEPS program, the 12 STEPS program, which they use for alcohol and drugs and codependency and many other things that we become addicted to as an external force. But they use, one of the techniques is to surrender to a higher power. And I honestly believe that is the first step to seeking what it is that will satiate you. So all through my channel, you'll see a theme of surrendering to the creator, to source. And this is, I believe, the key to moving past the materialistic stage that a lot of us go through. Some of us will never really leave it because they don't see a problem with it. But if you don't feel enough pain, you probably won't be pushed or motivated to seek a solution. But that's why I think there is a benefit in hitting rock bottom for a lot of people, because it's enough pain finally to say, I've had enough. I need something better than this in my life. So then we get to this point in our spiritual journey where we realize that we need to detach from these former sensory pleasures in our life. We can't fully and solely rely on them anymore for our fulfillment or satiation. We know it doesn't work. And a lot of us get to that realization. And so we start to slowly pull away from, or suddenly renounce, it depends on your method, some of these things like alcohol, drinking, drugs, food, sensual delights, all these different kind of physical world materialistic solutions that we try and find when we're feeling empty here. Now, we all know ultimately that the truth lies beyond the simulation. And when you get to that realization in your life, you feel a real change. It's a beautiful sea change that you begin to feel, and it creates this beautiful momentum into a higher perception, a higher consciousness, and a higher way of being. And it kind of snowballs from there. I think in my life that's been the case. The need to go back to those former sensual delights is not there anymore. And you don't need to distract or numb yourself from what you've been hiding from, that emptiness inside, because it becomes full. If you fill your cup, if you like, you fill your spirit, you fill your heart with that understanding that you are pure loving awareness, having a human experience. You are no longer identified with the human body. And so you don't need those sensual delights as medicine anymore. You can go beyond that. And I'm grateful for the journey. I think a lot of us look back when we're going through this and are very, very grateful, no regrets, just really grateful that we have that contrast to refer to in our lives, so that we can empathize more with others and understand where they're coming from and their struggles, because we've been through them too. So then you can kind of come into this zone of the unknown once you kind of surrendered a lot of those sensual delights and external pleasures. You kind of move in and out of this unknown feeling, and it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable, because it really is a new way of being and a new way of perceiving the experience of life. It's no longer seeking external forces to give you nourishment, but rather going within and discovering that you had all the technology and the abilities inside of you the whole time. And it's a beautiful, beautiful exploration at this point in the journey. And so we begin to seek to fill ourselves and find that love that never really existed in these artificial constructs within the simulation, never existed in food and drink and socializing and creating a family and building a house and filling our bank account and seeking a career experience and climb and into some sort of power and recognition and status. And you realize that none of that really satiates you, and you start to find it more from something beyond what you've been shown, beyond the program. So now for me, I've experienced, it is a journey, obviously. It's the hero's journey we go through in this seeking in our spiritual liberation. But for me, fears come up This is normal. This is where you do your shadow work and you shed light in the darkness of who you've been your whole life, and pull out those weeds and turn that darkness into light, and you go in and feel with courage some of this stuff that's been under the carpet the whole time. And I believe this is a necessary part of the journey, because we need to look inside ourselves at the things that we were hiding from, but were also stopping us from seeing with spiritual eyes and hearing with spiritual ears the truth. So a lot of these programs and seeking of external forces for comfort will blind you to the truth. So it's necessary to go in there and look at the darkness and see what you are suffering through. Because the moment you see it, it's transformed. So a lot of current fears, I believe, are coming up for a lot of people right now. And for me, I'm no exception. One thing that came up for me recently was, is it really appropriate for me to shine a lot of light on love and truth? Am I putting myself in danger? And Jesus talks about shining your light. Don't hide it under a bushel. But then, there's an ability to use your wisdom and discernment and be vigilant about how loud you want to squawk, if you like. And Jesus also said, "Be wise like a serpent and peaceful like a dove." We need to be very graceful and gentle and careful about spreading truth and sharing that in the right way, in a way that will help people ease into flow and understanding, rather than into division and putting their back up, if you like. So there is a beautiful way of doing it that is in flow, and I believe that will come to you. If you're someone who really wants to be of service to others, that will come to you when you surrender and you stay loyal to that surrendering. And God, the Creator, will come in and meet you halfway with grace. You don't have to do it all on your own strength. This is encouragement for many people always, is you don't have to do this on your own strength. That is the purpose of surrendering. Admitting you can't do it with just this avatar and the tools in this avatar, but you need to go beyond that into the spiritual realms and seek a higher perception so you can see through that and navigate this world through that perception. So I realized that we really need to be aware that fear really is the only thing to be afraid of, and not even. There really is nothing to be afraid of. Self-preservation is something that kicks in. I believe it's like an animal instinct. The fight, flight, freeze part of the brain creates this anxiety and fear when we feel threatened physically. And I believe that we need to be aware and conscious of when a thought comes into our mind that is based on external forces, or is it based on internal divine guidance? And to be really good at discerning the differences between those types of thoughts that come into your mind. Is that an internal force or thought coming from the divine, or is that an external thought coming from some external simulated experience based on fear and separation and pain? You just get really good at knowing the difference. And then you can dismiss the ones that are based on the outside world and surrender that fear straight away. And then listen to the inward bound thoughts from the divine as your guidance, as your path, as the Tao, as the way through life. So this fear of self-preservation, just be aware it can kick in, especially at this time, challenge. But we really need to just surrender that. We don't need to be fearful of this avatar and its safety. If we fully surrender to the divine, we will be cradled and led into safety. And we also need to realize that any kind of external fear, like fear of our body perishing, is a fear that can be used to manipulate you. And true freedom is not being able to be manipulated. We need to be able to be so free from all of the illusion that we shine in that love and that truth. And people will You will be witness for people. People will see that in you and be transformed by being around you, because you are demonstrating to them that unshakable inner peace is not based in this world, in the simulation. It's attainable for anyone. It is who you really are. It's just a matter of demonstrating that to others. So it's about completely letting go. The spiritual journey really is realizing that everything we try and struggle with is creating resistance and separation and pain, and just to let go. And you'll feel that love, that oneness again, returning to you. So I know sometimes it can be really hard. You want to escape where we are right now. We want to escape, especially with the world news and what's going on. We don't want to be here anymore. A lot of us, I get that feeling sometimes too. Not all the time, but I will admit it. Occasionally, I just want out. A lot of us go, I just want to go home, wherever that is. But we know that we're here for a reason. And I just want to remind you of that. It is a complete blessing. It is a divine gift that you are here right now in your human form, a divine gift. So treasure it. Treasure every moment you have, every minute of every day that you're alive. Every morning you wake up and come conscious to the day within this experience with gratitude, because this is a priceless gift to be in a human form experiencing this contrast, especially at this time. So don't wish a moment away. Embrace it. Breathe it in. See that you are heaven on earth. It's attainable. It is you. It is possible. Heaven is not somewhere out there. It's not, it doesn't have a beginning, so it won't have an ending. Anything with a beginning will have an ending. There is no beginning of heaven for you in your life. You are heaven. You are divine, loving awareness. You're just simply having a human experience right now. At this moment in time and space within the simulation, you are always with God, with the Creator, with Source, the true you, the true I am, the multidimensional being. You can demonstrate now to others what heaven is. So maybe do that today if you can. Show others what real heaven is. Surrender. Surrender in every moment. So I just wanted to share that. I think a bit of encouragement is always helpful. I always like hearing it myself. I like hearing it out of my mouth, and I'm sure you can appreciate it too. So please like, subscribe, and share if you resonated, and have a beautiful day. See ya.